Hello. Well, this has turned out to be quite an epic, hasn't it? This is the third video in what's turned out to be a series about a Virgin Atlantic advert, which I shall now start playing behind me without the sound, but there's you can see what's being said on the subtitles if you're interested. It's not really important right now because I'm going to be talking about the importance of uniforms, or rather the relevance of uniforms. So before I start that, if you are going to start calling me a TERF and telling me I have opinions which you've just thought up out of your own mind because you haven't seen the previous videos, then please, if you have the ability to watch a video and actually absorb information, look at the first video I made, which is where I tell you my opinions about this sort of dressing, and yeah, that's it. And then you can come back to this and you can start criticising what I'm saying about this. But yeah, just don't fly off the handle straight away. I know there are plenty who are quite happy to do that. All right. Also, I'm not going to be monetizing this video, again, for obvious reasons. YouTube is very touchy about this. And yeah, they actually demonetized a guy in Ukraine who's giving updates on the course of the Ukrainian army's progress into what was previously Russian-held territory. What's going on there? He actually doesn't even insult well, not so far as I remember. Sometimes he gets a little enthusiastic, but he doesn't start talking and calling for the deaths of soldiers or anything horrible like that. He just talks about how glad he is that his side appears to be on the winning side right now. Yeah, well, anyway, there's no telling what will happen with YouTube, and yeah, grab this while you can. It may go as well. All right, so let's just get on to this. What is the purpose of a soldier wearing a uniform? Now, I'm going to be referring to soldiers and nurses, but this will work mainly for school children or any janitors, anybody who wears a uniform. But, you know, it's a bit awkward including everybody, so I'm just going to talk about soldiers mostly. Why does a soldier wear a uniform? Well, it's because it makes the soldier part of an identifiable group. If you see, so there's all the, when they're dressed up in dress uniforms, there's all the pomp and circumstances, of course, and when they're in combat uniforms, they're workmanlike and should be reasonably protective. So there are those points, but the main point is it's an identifiable part of a greater whole. It's also it reinforces the soldier's awareness that he is part of a greater unit than himself, and so he has to conform to the norms of that group. And this is just simple psychology. You may say it shouldn't be like this, that we should look at people's hearts and their souls and their characters rather than what they look like on the outside in the way they're dressing. But the fact is that in times of combat or emergency, you're not looking at people's souls, you're looking at whether they're acting in a protective or logical way according to the circumstances. If you're in a medical establishment and you see an emergency going on in one of the beds, you call a nurse. You don't just grab the nearest little old lady that's toddling through to visit her husband with a basket of fruit in her hands. Although, actually, talking about a previous nurse I spoke about in a previous video, in which this nurse said publicly that Conservative voters shouldn't be resuscitated by the NHS, then yeah, maybe the little old lady with a basket of fruit would be a better prospect. Anyway, that being the case, you're still going to be looking for a doctor or a nurse, or somebody dressed like a doctor or a nurse. And sometimes that goes horribly wrong, by the way, but that's another story. And it's not confined to just armies, as I said. Antifa wears a uniform, the police wear uniforms, the KKK wear uniforms, Catholic priests wear uniforms, ultra-religious Jews wear uniforms, and you expect a certain sort of behaviour from people wearing those uniforms. An unfortunate characteristic which is used by con men far too often. Anyway, when you look at an army, you know you expect them to be subject to certain sorts of rules. You may not approve of those rules. For instance, you may not approve of what an SS officer stands for, but you know what to expect from one. Now, to these people in the Virgin ad, when they put on these costumes that don't conform to what we think of as uniforms or the correct use of the uniforms, we don't know what to expect from them. And that's the problem. When we don't know what gender they identify as, we don't know what to think of how they're going to act in an emergency, because if they can't conform to their gender, at least in outward appearance, for the short time that they're on a plane, then we can't be sure they'll conform to the rules of the game when they're on the plane and there's an emergency happening. When they're on the plane, they're supposed to be serving as functionaries. There are various operations involved in keeping a plane in the air and keeping the passengers in their seats. In a very unnatural situation, 30,000 feet up in the air, inside a metal box, there are certain rules and procedures that we'll expect them to follow to keep us safe and reasonably content. But if they can't conform to a simple uniform while they're on board a plane, then how can we be sure they'll conform to the rules in time of stress, when snap decisions have to be made and orders have to be followed through without a second thought, many of them counter-intuitively? And then there's the other problem. When you're on a plane and you don't know what to call one of the staff, you don't know how to approach them, then you will feel nervous for another reason. If you happen to misgender, hey, miss, when it turns out to be a female identifying as a man or something like that, that person is likely to fly off the handle, to give you a telling off, to tell you that she doesn't feel safe. You are instantly put in a position of nervousness with regard to how the staff are going to react if you happen to slip up with something. And you're not going to be feeling very comfortable. It's just not reassuring, is it? And so the next thing I want to ask is, why aren't they worried about the passengers being reassured? The advert starts with the spokeswoman, who is not a stewardess, by the way, or a steward, or even cabin staff. She's a woman who spends a lot of time making shows along with people like RuPaul. She says, she feels fabulous. Well, yeah, but I don't care how she feels. I just care how I feel in a plane where I'm not at my happiest, where I want to be wherever I am going to. I don't want to be in the plane, and where things can happen quite suddenly and quite disastrously. I don't care if she feels fabulous. So, and I wonder why Virgin don't understand that. Why the customer isn't the important point here. Why it's more about the staff feeling fabulous. It's actually a disturbing trend in society right now, about people feeling comfortable with themselves in their own personal lives, in their own skins. It's all very nice, but it's not about the customer anymore, is it? It's not about whoever is on the receiving end of whatever service they're delivering. It's a complete turnaround in attitudes to service and to doing things for other people. Remember, especially in an airplane, the passenger is at the mercy of the staff. I've just said that. We've seen plenty of videos of staff bullying passengers, haven't we? There'll be many up on the internet, even on this marvellous YouTube that I'm on. And then, of course, and I'm making a satirical comment about YouTube there, not about BitChute, Rumble and Minds. Okay. And when this sort of a circus turns up of people wearing costumes because it makes them feel better without thinking about how it makes the customer feel, then it means that the feelings of the staff trump the feelings of the passengers, and the passengers are the people who are keeping those staff in employment. Is that not so? I just remembered something. Yeah, something from the Bible. Sodom and Gomorrah. I'm not referring to the staff as denizens of Sodom and Gomorrah, by the way. I'm just remembering what the Bible says about the people of Sodom. They said, every man did what was right in his own eyes. And the result, according to the Bible, the result of that was chaos. No social cohesion. A breakdown of the social contract between people. Yeah, and when you see those guys on Virgin Atlantic being happy with themselves in their own eyes, you have a feeling that the society in that aeroplane has broken down. There's no cohesion, there's no social consensus. People are doing what's right in their own eyes, and for goodness sake, if it's right in their own eyes to feel fabulous, dressed in a way that doesn't reassure the passengers, how do we know that they're not going to feel it's right in their own eyes to jump ship first in an emergency? Okay, well, yeah, that's probably the last I have to say about that Virgin advert. I am granniopteryx. As I've said before, I'm not going to monetize any of these videos. It's just not worth the hassle, and YouTube, I might be a bit concerned that YouTube will take this video down altogether. And if it does, I'll make another video letting you know in some way that they're on other platforms. All right, so as I said, granniopteryx, I'm on YouTube, at least for now, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. I am not monetizing this video, so I would appreciate it if you would help my channel by liking, sharing and subscribing. If you're on YouTube, check your subscription. Also, subscribe to my Twitter, Gab or Parler platforms, where I let you know when I've uploaded a video, because YouTube's a bit iffy about informing people on that as well. Okay, yeah, as I said, you can also help my channel by contributing financially. You can buy me a coffee or go to one of the other platforms below. Subscribe Star does let you pay once off. You don't have to commit to a rolling payment either. Okay, that's about it. Till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the granniopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.granniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.